2026 has been a bumper year for crop circles. You could almost say that they're back. More formations, more complexity, and more people asking questions that don't have easy answers. My guest today has been inside more crop circles than almost anyone alive. Dan Vidler has spent 23 years researching these formations at ground level, and I mean literally at ground level. While most of us are wowed by the drone footage and the aerial shots, Dan gets on his hands and knees to study the intricate details that most people walk straight past. His book, Crop Circles, Layers of Mystery, has become the definitive field guide to what actually is going on inside these formations. Today, we talk about how he got into the field, what 23 years of research has shown him, and his thoughts on the connection between crop circles and consciousness. This one is going to be fascinating. Let's begin. I'm joined by Dan Vidler, who is a crop circles researcher of 20 years. I recently saw him in action, giving a speech at the Crop Circles Festival. I was so fascinated, I was like, I have to get him on to talk more about all of his insights into crop circles. So it's a pleasure to have you on today, Dan. How are you?
Yeah, so as well, thank you. Yeah, good.
I always try and butter up my guests as much as possible just to get things
Yeah,
off to a good start. But it was a super fascinating talk that you gave. And it seems like this year, as much as any year, there's been some really interesting crop circle formations that have appeared.
yeah, it's been uh, a really good crop circle season. Good meaning a lot of crop circles because numbers have sort of gradually declined over the last decade or so, probably perhaps a bit more. Um, to have had more crop circles this year than in previous years. Yeah, so a lot to talk about. Quite, just some impressive stuff. Two big crop circles in the same field that hasn't happened for quite a long time.
Yeah.
So various points of interest, really. Yeah, yeah, it's been really good.
And some quite close to you as well, which you seemed quite pleased about.
Oh my God, I'm very pleased about it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Within 10 minutes of my home in Glastonbury, so that is yeah, it's quite a big deal. Being able to just get in there quick, early, go in a couple of times sometimes, and
Yeah.
yeah, make a difference.
Has that area always been a hot spot for crop circles?
Somerset it sort of gets the odd one here and there. Last year there were a couple sort of nearby, so over the years, the odd one or two, but this year has felt a little well. This year and last actually felt a little bit more, at the very least, convenient to me, but perhaps a bit more personal as well.
Do you think
Yeah.
that the fact that they're in Somerset near Glastonbury sort of aligns itself with this ley line theory that there is the invisible line or magnetic line or energetic lines that run through the earth that seem to be the places where more crop circle formations appear?
I think that is a significant part of the crop circles, their association with ancient sites, whether it's ley lines or sites of sort of ancient historical, perhaps spiritual interest. Um, I know I mean, there is that everywhere. I think how that relates to Somerset is a different question, I think, because it's only been recently that there've been perhaps a few more here. Whereas if you look at the sort of epicenter around Avebury, where we met Alton Barnes, that sort of heartland of Wiltshire,
Mm.
I would say and I'm no historian with any expertise in this, but there's a density of ancient sites,
Yeah.
or sites of interest in that area, perhaps more so than there are here. But so the short answer is, I think crop circles are related to this, in terms of their appearance at Somerset. Yes, but to a lesser degree.
Yeah. And for people who probably aren't that familiar with crop circles, or that, say, for instance, they've only been into it for like a year, like myself. I've only really been fascinated with them for about a year. I was aware of them, but not really as interested as I have been. We're probably not aware about the preceding years where you said there was a bit of a decline in crop circles. What was going on? Why do you think we have more crop circles now?
Well, the answer to why there's a decline is my answer to a lot of things related to crop circles, which is that I don't know why that is. There was definitely a pattern. Perhaps you could go all the way back to the early, mid, and late 90s and early 2000s, where there were a lot. I think there were something like 73 in 2005, around that time. Those are that's the sort of numbers that were happening when I first got into it. Um, and I don't know the number for this year. It might be about 20 though. So it's
Wow.
not too few, but it's quite different to that.
Yeah.
So one of the whether it's related to this or not, everything is a like a possible theory. But if you imagine a lot of people who are interested in this, you almost could say everyone's got a different theory and they're all as valid as any other, even if one might contradict another one. But as you'd heard me speak about a little bit more briefly, I very strongly think that crop circles are linked to there's a consciousness involved in the creation of crop circles. Um, I believe, I don't know what that consciousness is, but I believe it to be related to humans, perhaps in the sense of a universal consciousness, which we're part of. Um, so if I was giving you a concise answer, it might be that general human, let's say, human interest in the phenomenon uh, reducing could lead to a reduction in the numbers of crop circles appearing. And just
Mm.
to be clear, I don't think people making them, but just that conscious involvement with the energy that surrounds it. Um, do I think that now that interest is on the increase? Perhaps. So if that theory were true to any degree, it might correlate that more interest in crop circles generally could lead to uh, an increase in numbers through that conscious interaction with the energy.
So
So
I thought about this
that's
idea yesterday, and
my
it's a little bit like when they say if you don't believe in Father Christmas, he goes away, he doesn't come. I don't know if you've seen the movies where it's like, there's almost like a meter.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But the irony is Father Christmas isn't real, but crop circles are real. Um, but they're both connected to this idea of belief. But in like culture and society, kids are taught that Father Christmas is real, but they probably be taught that crop circles aren't real, and the result of planks and ropes and things like that.
Okay, I see what you mean. Yeah, yeah. Well, there is.
Um,
Yeah, I think we should be clear to our younger viewers that Father Christmas is real. So
oh yeah,
it's
sorry. Yeah,
just in
yeah.
case
My
it involves
apologies.
customs of children. So I want to clear that up now before we go on. It's
Yeah,
both
and
real,
I'd
both
like
magic.
to clear up my these are not reflective of my thoughts or feelings either. I also think Father Christmas is real, and yeah,
I do think, it's interesting. I see. I don't know if it's when I talk about consciousness, conscious interest in crop circles,
yeah,
not necessarily, uh, let's say us, the crop circle community, or anyone interested in it. I don't know that it's a conscious intention to believe in them and therefore
yeah,
more here. But I just think,
yeah,
I think more. I think because I wasn't involved with this in the early 90s when it was the absolute peak of public interest, 1990. Um, and then beyond, and the numbers of crop circles, I think at that time were probably at their peak, as was the interest from the wider public in huge numbers compared to now.
yeah,
Um, yeah, so for me, it's not a particular focus for my research or my work, but I do broadly believe that that's the case. Yeah,
And sometimes with things relating to the consciousness, it isn't just about being able to prove it, it's a sense of knowing, which is almost undescribable. And I think that's probably one of the tough things about it is you just feel like this is right. Um, and
yeah,
in terms of my own experience, which was experience of synchronicity, is I'd never been in a crop circle until that crop circles festival weekend, and I'd seen a picture of the first one by Roundway, and somebody had described it as a cosmic chicken, and I think lots of people look at that and see a bird. And then I managed to go to it when the second one turned up. So I went in two. So I got, like you said, almost like a gift. It felt like quite personal for me that I got two in one.
yeah,
And I talk about this in a video I made afterwards where uh, I had a wonderful experience, really loved it. Then the next day I heard someone talking about their theory about what it meant. And it was about the ascension of human consciousness to a different dimension and that the angles were like piano keys, but not like a flat piano, but almost like a dimensional piano. And it was like a phoenix rising. And I think most people, like I said, most people think it was a sort of bird or something. And that then there was the sun next to it. And as he was saying that, this title of a song called Bird of Beauty came into my head, which I'd been listening to. Then when I looked at the album cover for the Stevie Wonder song Bird of Beauty, the album cover is a staircase of piano keys with like four levels across it, almost like um, different dimensions, different layers. And I just thought it was such a moment of synchronicity that the description that somebody else had for this crop formation was a song that it popped into my head that I'd been listening to, and that the album artwork from the 1970s was exactly like that description. And it made it
yeah,
feel quite special and personal. Now, that might be completely just me making up in my own head, but I can't help but feel that there was something magical, almost like a gift, like you said. That's why when you said about a gift, it really resonated with me.
yeah, absolutely. And I think when you once you engage with this with the world of this, perhaps sometimes it can be a door opening to other other beliefs or theories or anything that the universe can offer really. But one of the things that comes along with it is accepting that although what you just said is true, although everyone, all of us, you and me and whoever could be making it up in our own head, we're probably not. It probably really is the synchronicity and the gift and the universe speaking to us in a slightly more direct way, perhaps.
Yeah, and why couldn't it be that the things that I saw and experienced from this one formation exclude somebody else's completely different journey and interpretation from being just as synchronistic? Because
Yeah,
they can find something that makes complete sense to what they've been through from this formation as to what I've done, because it doesn't mean that I'm right that it's a bird and a piano keys, but that's what I've interpreted and that's what I've
yeah,
connected. And I think, like you've said, consciousness and connection are really the fundamental parts of experiencing these crop circles.
yeah, exactly. And like, you're exactly right. Everyone has a different experience with it, but one person's experience doesn't cancel another. Yeah, and it can
Yeah.
be they're individual and they're completely different, and they might be contradictory. And that's a whole nother avenue to explore, really, because when things are contradictory yet real, that's another side to the seemingly impossible actually being possible.
Yeah, and the entire scientific framework is built on this contradiction, the idea that the Big Bang was the start of everything,
Mm.
but what became before that? If you had
Yeah, yeah,
what if you had a start of something, then where did it start from? But so people accept one miracle, but they don't accept all these other miracles.
yeah, yeah.
Um, so I believe you have some stuff that you're able to share with us, in particular around this year. And what I like about your analysis is lots of people are interested in the shapes and the formations, almost like as if they imagine them from a drone, but you are very specific with the details, and I think you've found some really interesting things in that as well.
That's been my work over 23 years. Yeah. And what I might try and do is show you it's linked to when we spoke before, perhaps about my background within this. I
Yeah,
can't remember whether we'd been specific, but my route into my work, which is focused on the ground details, was sort of neatly aligns with our discussion about synchronicity, because I was, in my opinion, shown by the crop circle phenomenon of the very finest detail um, very early on in my experience of crop circles, which told me that gave me the I don't know, the initiative, or was a clear message to me that that was my path
mm,
within this. For what purpose? Um, one might argue that's still not known. I would argue that my my focus being ground details, there aren't that many people who've documented that.
yeah,
I don't know that there are any who've documented it in quite the same way that I have. So it builds part of the jigsaw puzzle that is all the different facets of research or interest. Um, but that was sort of, I believe, given to me as a message that this was my path, if you like.
and
So
what was that feeling like when you sort of thought this, did that moment feel like it changed the direction of your life entirely?
yeah, well, that did as the week before that. If I show, can I show you if we
Of course.
share, well, 8 years or so before I saw my first crop circle, Andy Thomas, who's the author of this book, was involved with a group who worked tirelessly. I think a group of researchers who worked a lot with meditation, mediums, and on location in various places to with the sort of there were wider intentions, but one of them was to manifest the formation of a crop circle in response to their work. So this is an amazing book if you can get it. I think
Yeah.
it's out of print. Incredible. Um, so that was 1995. And then I discovered crop circles in 2003. And I'll tell you the brief story of that because it involves Andy Thomas, who's the author of this. And I'll bring it round to why this is relevant. Saw a talk by Andy. And then I knew of a crop circle. I was living in Brighton. I knew of a crop circle, so I drove just to have a look through from the car. With that, and as I drove past it, I saw Andy, who I'd met. I'd spoken to him very briefly at a talk he gave, but no more than that. But I saw him by the side of the field, sort of preparing to go in. Um, and then so I went. I stopped the car. That was one moment of revelation. Stopped the car, jumped out, and ran across the road and sort of walked up the field towards Andy. And I didn't spend a lot of time with him in there, but he was there as a little partial guide, I suppose, in that very first crop circle. Um, so I'm going to bring this back to 1995 when Andy and his team were involved in I don't know how you describe it, not exactly experiments, but just work around the
Yeah.
manifestation of a crop circle. Um, and the end result of which um, was the appearance of the crop circle that's featured on the front of his book there. And that so, but what had actually happened was I'm gonna click the slides and see if uh, so this is the red dot. The if I was giving a talk on this, I'd give a little bit more information. The red dot
Yeah.
is where they sort of performed the final meditation. I think if that's the
Hmm.
best way of saying it. Um, on Wolstonbury Hill, which became a place that I frequented a lot, with some best friends who lived very close by. So there's a little bit of synchronicity in that it happened there. Um, then I only discovered this when reading Quest for Contact, but Felbridge, which was where that crop circle appeared, basically as a response to their work, is the village where I grew up, where I lived from 1 year old until I left home at 19. And so this is it's a massive synchronicity
Mm.
because it's a relatively small place, not that near to where they held the work that they were doing on Wolstonbury Hill. Um, and it sort of goes further. I wondered whether my theory is that the energy that that traveled in that direction from Andy and his team in then the creation of that crop circle, which it's very well documented in the book. I sort of hoped as I started working on these alignments that was going to go through my house, because that would be literally a dream. As a
Yeah,
16
through your bedroom.
idea that crop circles are a thing, let alone anything else about them. But where the lines cross at the bottom is where the crop circle was, and the sort of path that goes left to right, right to horizontally below it. Every single day of the year that summer, I cycled my bike along that path because I was heavily into fishing. I used to go fishing just along the road.
Mm.
So I have a very firm theory that the energy that was involved in that crop circle's formation,
Yeah.
um, I'd crossed it twice a day for the whole summer, and almost bizarrely hadn't known there was a crop circle in the field that was right there because I was behind some trees or whatever. But so then when that came round to being Andy who was involved with that, who I believe that the energy that was involved in creating that crop circle sat in me from the age of 16. It was deeply in me.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, the length of time in between, I can't explain. I've got no theory on that. But when it came to me becoming involved with crop circles, that was directly related to Andy Thomas. And it's just almost like we were talking about synchronicity and things you can make up in your own head, but it's almost too good to be true that appeared in my home village, and Andy was involved, and then he was there on the first day. So there's a bit more where it. So that's the sort of deeper background to it for me. And then there's a book by Michael Green that crop circle was in one of the fields in that same area in Felbridge. So it's an area that I visited a reasonable amount in the 90s, even though I didn't know anything about it. And then this crop circle is the first one. There are two in the same field there. But
Wow.
the bigger of the two was the fresh one at the time I went in there with Andy. Yeah, so it seems like a long way apart because it's sort of 95 to 2003, and now of course it's another 23 years on or whatever. So that feels very distant at the time. It's still 8 years, but it's still quite a long time in between. But so this was the first one. Um, and then I'm just going to conclude this bit. This is the second crop circle that I ever visited. So when I was speaking about being shown my path, so to speak, visited this crop circle the week after the one that I showed previously, and the stems were flowing clockwise I think in all of this, although I didn't investigate it in the way that I would now, but in that outer ring, all the stems were clockwise. But then something made me sort of get on my hands and knees and look closely. And then around the very outer edge, just the thickness of one stem was a ring, literally the thickness of one stem going all the way around anti-clockwise, where one
Wow.
stem all the way around was flowing against the flow of everything else in that crop circle.
Wow.
So this is rare. It's a rare thing to see. Even now, if I see that now, that's a very rare thing.
I suppose it's a
Um,
rare thing to notice as well, to be honest.
Exactly. And I noticed it on the second crop circle I visited. So that was profound, and that it just told me,
Mm.
like this is for you, whether it's for me or for everybody else as well, of course. But this is going to be your this is going to be your life for the rest of your life, or my life in crop circles. So that's the background to it. I don't think I've got any photos of that, because I wasn't documenting the interiors at that
Yeah.
stage. It was there as a very open-minded visitor who mind-blowingly uh, joyous at my involvement in this all of a sudden. Um,
Yeah, and I think to what you've said, you don't really know the impact of something so small as one decision, whether that's somebody else's decision to try and manifest a crop circle, or even the decision to get on your hands and knees and to look in one direction. You might just catch a glimpse of something that is important that will change the way you look at everything else in the future. And
and
I
and
think I
your whole life,
think
really.
yeah,
Yeah,
I think it's almost like timelines. Your life could be very different if other things had been different. And that's why I think it is important for us to approach things with the right mindset and attitude and consciousness because us having this conversation might open the eyes of somebody else who then has a profound impact positively on something in the future. And
yeah,
clearly, the work of Andy Thomas has helped inspire other people. Your work has inspired people. And I think these crop circles, if anything, are like that. You can't help but look at that and think there's great intelligence that is trying to change the way we view things.
yeah, exactly. And there's a lot of sort of fine detail wrapped up in everyone's story, because lots of people have a story like it, whether it's around their first experiences of crop circles or they've been into it for 3 decades or whatever. But even down to the time that I left my house on that morning when, um, on the day, it was the 25th of May, 2003, that first crop circle. If I'd left the house 5 minutes later, Andy
Yeah,
would have already been up in the field. I wouldn't have seen him. So I probably wouldn't have gone in. I
yeah,
probably would have looked from the car window, been impressed, and sort of perhaps, I don't know, it's impossible to say this, but perhaps carried on my way and been interested, and that was all. And
yeah.
I like that idea that everything aligns and everything is sort of meant to be. It doesn't mean it's set in stone, but things happen. Um,
Yeah,
that can make.
time is definitely a dimension of this as well, as we've just seen.
Oh God, it's whole. Like I might have said to you the other day when we met, there are whole other talks.
Yeah.
We could. It's a whole at least an hour just on what that might feel like. Yeah, for sure.
I actually had the pleasure of speaking with Andy not too long ago, actually, which was
Yeah,
super fascinating because he's got such a broad set of experiences and interests. It's much more than crop circles, it's the paranormal and everything more. So, yeah, really great
yeah,
guy.
absolutely is. Yeah, having gone through a bit of that background, I think it's always relevant to sort of know why this is my area of focus in a way. Um, we can jump to some of this year's crop circles,
Yeah,
which, as you know, sort of got a range of features. In the book I've written, and I spoke about this recently. I kind of broke the feature, identified 36 different sort of finer details that can crop circles, and some of those are in all crop circles, like the flow and the direction of the stems that are flattened.
yeah,
It's a rare crop circle, excuse me, where you don't see some kind of layering of stems, so that's one that's very common. But they range from those sort of not always simpler things, but more common perhaps, to rarer features, different things that you can see, but very often you'll identify features that you've seen in other crop circles,
yeah,
whether whether in the same season or before. And so, as you were talking about the two formations at Roundway, you'll know that the second one of those in the outer sort of flattened triangular areas had a
Yeah,
basket with pattern.
which is
So
incredible to look at in person.
yeah,
Because
yeah, it's not,
for all the people that think it's man-made, it happened in a field where people were actively visiting the
yeah,
first one already, and then they were camping beside it, and it
mm,
appeared out of nowhere. Nobody heard anyone doing it, and if they were people, then they would have had to have taken the time to do the layering. But the layering was so there was so much of it. It wasn't like I just can't fathom that anybody would be able to do that, or a group of people, and to get it right and to do it without getting spotted in a field where people are already looking. It's just incredible, really. And I'd always that was always one of the things about crop circles that really caught me when I first started looking into them is this basket weaving thing because for me that takes so much effort. And one of the questions I asked you at the Crop Circles Festival because I'd never really thought about until you'd articulated it was this idea of a flow because for things to happen and for things to be on top of each other, there has to be the sequence, which I think I was able to visualize, and it gives this like beautiful idea that almost everything is happening in a kind of like symphony of movement where it creates this formation, but it's like this pure energy, but there isn't a design about it.
mm.
So I really like the fact that you talk about the flow of the energy that happens in these formations. Also, your book is called Crop Circles, Layers of Mystery, and there was only 6 copies left on Amazon on the link I saw. Is it going to be, are there going to be more copies or is it going to be republished or an ebook or audiobook or anything?
there'll be more copies. Yeah, yeah. I buy
Good,
them in batch.
good.
Yeah.
Definitely recommend to people to get that book. Um,
Yeah, thank you. Well, we'll touch on this stuff a bit more in the next few minutes, but the aim of it is, as you know, is to provide a sort of, it's almost a guide. It doesn't tell you the answers, but a guide which says, actually, you're looking at you could stand in a crop circle field and look at those stems and think, okay, well, what is this that I'm looking at? And
yeah,
perhaps where else I've been seen. It's a reference tool, hopefully.
yeah, great.
So this is a particularly interesting creation. It was near to my home, which doesn't make it interesting for anyone else, but it is to me. But there's sort of two or three features to this. Um, one of which is the fact that it's a reasonably rare thing. It's a pretty rare thing, really, that crop circles appear over more than one night, because usually they're there. That's it. That's the design. On some occasions, you have phases. We kind of call them phase one, phase two. That kind of if there are additions made. So what we're looking at from the 10th of May is phase one of this crop circle in Somerset. So the points to note, because I'll show you a few of the photos from inside this, which was very, very nice in Bali. A couple of things to notice from the aerial shot are the way the circles around the outside are kind of flattened where the pathways join.
Yeah,
And also those six curved arcs that join the central circle to the outer circles. Um, they are as they are. The other thing to note, and I think I show this a bit more in some slides, is underneath um, the flattened circles, the outer circles. If you can see straight lines on those, not where the tram lines are, but in the two on the left and right of the center,
mm,
those indicate where there's a pathway of about 6 inches wide of stems that flow um, in all the six circles, flow towards the center circle. Um, so it's these sort of underlying intricacies that are part of my interest, really. What we think we're looking at is six flattened circles around the central one, but
yeah,
even within that, there's more to it. Once you do actually have to sort of look underneath the flattened stems. And the one on the left, I won't labour this point particularly, but the underlying pathway on that left circle actually instead of pointing towards the middle, pointed out towards the sort of outer circumference, as it were. It was the only one that did that.
And did that point
And
towards your house?
no, it didn't, but that's exactly what I wanted. Track the alignment of that of the central circle to that one across the landscape. Do I wonder if it's to my house? A little bit of me does wonder that, like the Felbridge incident in 1995. But what I have again, this is not for today's talk, but what I have discovered is there's very, very accurate alignment of from crop circle designs to perhaps landscape features or other crop circles.
Mm.
Um, it's happened lots and lots, including, I always find this quite intriguing where there's an alignment with certain crop circles that sort of identify the location of other crop circles, but not necessarily within that same season. So
Mm.
sometimes 2 or 3 years apart. Um, and
Interesting.
one might argue that if they were happening in a reasonably small area, there's a fair likelihood that there's some sort of crossing over of things. But what I've discovered is more accurate than that, because actually that could happen, yes, but the chance of that happening over quite a few miles and being pinpoint accurate on the center of circles is a bit different when they're not even there, because they've been
Yeah.
2 years, 3 years. Anyway, this is where we might talk about flow and the sort of gentleness with which stems are flattened. One indication of that is the fact that they recover quite well when it's sunny. Stems grow back up towards the sun, so rather than being crushed or broken or cut, which I think sometimes people new to crop circles or who are not involved with crop circles perhaps perceive that the stems are cut,
Yeah.
just they're actually chopped down, but they're not, of course. This In this image, you can see that one of those pathways that is underneath the clockwise flow of the rest that points towards the middle.
Yeah.
And that's a kind of swirled center that actually coincides with a tram line there, which is why that muddy patch is in the middle. I'm going to skip on and perhaps skip back to these. What this image shows is simply really for me how gently the stems are flattened. So rather than being, and you'll know this from my talk, Joe, and probably every talk I give, but from above, a crop circle looks like it's a clearly defined standing up stems and stems flat on the ground. Because the design is very accurate, nearly
Mm.
always. And in fact, what you find is that the stems aren't flat on the ground at all. Like this example, in one of the kind of curved pathways, those stems have never been flat. They've just been sort of held up, if you like, on the standing crop. So for me, this is evidence of the gentleness of whatever the energy is that causes the actual flattening.
Yeah.
It's not a harsh mechanical
Yeah.
crushing down the stem. It's almost, I imagine it like a watercolor brush, just creates the shape, but without actually flattening the stems some of the time.
Yeah. It's
Uh,
working with it.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I like this image as well because just if you on the far left, there's some stems there that are actually they've sort of overlapped the standing stems a little bit. Um, rather than being all defined by there's the standing crop, there's the flattened crop. And it just speaks of that gentleness of the energy for me. Um, there's an example of 4 layers in this crop circle because without a laser pointer it's harder to show, but there's some stems underneath sort of going top right to bottom left, then diagonally right, then top right to bottom left, and then sort of horizontally left to right across the top of that.
Amazing.
Yeah, and it's in what is a relatively, I don't know the geometry of this, and I never would claim for something to be simple because it is almost inevitably not. But if we speak generally, that is a simpler design than some. Just if we don't take into account very specific geometry, even in that situation, there's 4 layers of stems in certain areas.
It's not
Um,
409 circles.
it's not 409 circles exactly. No. Compared to that,
Yeah.
whatever geometry, that's relatively simple. People will probably tell me off for saying this stuff. Um, when I talked about the phases, this is why this is such an exciting event because my friend Thomas visited about an hour and a half after I left this crop circle, and I was there on the second day, not the first day it appeared, but the second. Um, so when I left it, and you'll remember that first aerial shot with the six
Yeah.
arms, 6 circles, one in the middle. That's all. And then Thomas took this shot with his drone at I think the time is 7:45 on the same Tuesday evening. So I'd left at 6 o'clock, and then he took that photo at 7:45. So an hour and 45 minutes later, there have been some additions made, which are those curved paths that join the original pathways.
Yeah.
So what we're looking at is evidence, which is rare actually, evidence of um, documented evidence of a daylight um, addition to a crop circle being made um, in broad daylight on adjacent to 2 public roads that were reasonably busy in that sort of early evening time, visible from both roads. So it's a really fortunate piece of evidence because between the two of us, we've got this window of time where something changed in that crop circle um, that is highly unlikely to have been changed by a person. I think that's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
I'm calling it phase two because if you the circle on the right, as I look at it, is not those pathways are not joined by an extra one. Um, so then the next day, oh yeah, here we are. So the next day, Thomas went back and they are all joined. So actually, there was a third phase which happened overnight that night. Um, what also happened is that the circles, if where I noted at the beginning, the circles were flattened as the pathways joined them, and if you
Yes.
can, see in that the lowest circle there, they were widened to be their full circular shape as well. Um, in that phase, I think they're widened here in phase two. So it wasn't just the pathways that were added during daylight hours; it was the circles that were um, increased in there, or at least sort of rounded to their circular shape. So this is not specifically ground detail related, but it is an exciting event that we've seen, and it's rare to have documented evidence of a daylight appearance because most
Yeah.
of that evidence, I mean, it's still anecdotal to a point, but we have photographic records of before and after. Um, for me, that's documentation, rather than just anecdotal.
Was there anyone around the formation whilst this was supposedly happening, or?
There was no one. Thomas did say there were. I think there were a couple of people in it when he arrived who sort of. I think he described making a bit of an exit, perhaps in thinking that they shouldn't be there, like which we do when we are in fields without farmers' permissions.
Yeah.
Um, who subsequently sort of came back in. Um, once they realized that Thomas wasn't the farmer. I think that was his perception anyway.
Right.
So yes, there were, um, not certainly uh, not witnessed doing anything to it, as it were.
More so, how did they witness it happening? And when
I
these
see.
like multiple layers of formations happen, like are people seeing the crops just come alive and or hearing it, or like are they witnessing what's going on?
I don't know, and unfortunately, in a way, in this case, because Thomas didn't know that this change had happened, um, until we sort of put this piece of the puzzle together the next day. So had he known that there was a change, he would have asked them, I'm sure, if they'd seen anything.
Yeah,
But of course, it's too late to do it. So it's a rare occurrence.
definitely.
That was the end of it. I went back the next day. The new pathways were very obviously freshly laid compared to the originals. Sort of to confirm on the ground, and also I was a bit intrigued about whether or not I had to look back over my own photos just to be sure that um, those those connecting paths weren't there when I was there, because we might overlook such a thing, but of course they weren't. Um, if the center of this image shows the new where the circle has been widened.
Mm,
It's really clear to see that because those stems on the very center of our screen there are flatter
yeah,
because they were only flattened the night before, whereas all the rest had been sort of regrowing, um, growing up towards the sun for a couple of days. So it's sort of further evidence on the ground for this being a fresh appearance. So that was my sort of 6 o'clock ish before, and then the next day. It's a cool thing.
it looks nice as well,
Yeah, really. Yeah.
vibrant and green, lovely.
And well, yeah. And if you are you was it the roundway circles that are your first experiences walking in to crop circles?
Yeah, first time inside, and it was very dry and crunchy.
Yeah, and it's as dry. That second roundway crop circle is for me literally as dry as you can get. Like
Yeah,
you've seen it at its absolute crispiest there. Um, And if next year we get some crop circles in Bali when it's green, hopefully you'll get a chance to go because it's a very different experience.
mm,
It's lush and soft and damp and like it looks really just a very, very different thing.
yeah,
I haven't got in our slideshow here. I haven't got my photos of the roundway, um, the second roundway circle. I visited it on that Sunday after we met. So I did take a lot of shots, but one of them it might be useful to show some of those before we finish because one of the was quite significant points as well as the basket weave was a lot of those stems, and you'll have seen this walking around, were not anywhere near the ground. They were kind of 6 inches off the ground because they were layered on top of each other, and it was
yeah,
absolutely like stepping into a sort of I don't know, a lattice of stems, wasn't it? Like
yeah,
inches of space underneath, which as soon as you stepped on it would crunch in and you'd be on, your foot's on the floor. I found it was quite astonishing that the amount of stems that were nowhere near to the ground, really.
yeah, and like
That
especially
quite
because
much.
they are perhaps a bit more delicate with the dryness as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. Well, as soon as you're on them, they're cracking and breaking
Yeah,
they're sort of damaged very much, aren't they? Well, before we stop, we can bring up a couple of shots of that and to show what we mean.
yeah,
It's another crop circle in Bali, and I visited this after a few days, so there's less to see on the ground because, as you can see from that lower circle, a lot of the stems have recovered quite well.
mm,
Um, but there is something that is useful to see. Some nice flow to the stems coming around the corners and things. Um, and then this I'm calling feature 37 because you often have swirled centers or sort of bunches of stems that are where the clockwise or sometimes anti-clockwise flow sort of finishes in the middle. So you have centers to features or circles. Um,
yeah. I saw one in Roundway. It was like the crown of the hair on your head. It was
yeah, sure, exactly.
interesting.
Yeah, yeah. And this what's unusual about this one, and I really liked it. And it's how the photo doesn't really do it justice, but there's a lot of stems swept up into this central sort of swirl in one of those circles. You can see them coming from the bottom there, kind of being
Yeah,
swept upwards into this peak. Um, but what's so rare about it for me is the seed heads that are in the middle there. So you can just see the fronds of the seed head of the barley sort of poking out from that swirl, and I haven't seen anything quite like it. You see stems coming up through the middle of things, but for it to just be the seed head, they've swirled from really deep in amongst that lot, and then just pokes the heads of the stems out at the top, and I really like it. I haven't seen anything quite like it, not with that level of intricacy. So, as I spoke about before, having seen hundreds of crop circles, we see lots of the same features, even if they're all
Mm.
individual. They're all different, really, but they come under broad headings like basket week. It's quite rare to see something that we've never seen before, and this was it. So it's a
Quite, yeah,
lovely thing.
quite an extensive amount of energy has to have gone into that to wrap it round enough to keep it like almost like a knot of or a twisted yeah, formation of sorts.
Yeah, and to keep those and to draw stems in from lower down or from further away that then result in just the seed heads being right in the center of that.
Yeah.
And of course, with that sort of thing in mind, I we say this a lot, but there's a reasonable chance. I would say a few hundred people probably visited this because it was quite accessible and very visible from White Street Hill. But there's a reasonable chance that no one looked quite close enough at that exact point in that quite large crop circle to see that fine detail. And so it's put there deliberately, but it's not really put there for everyone to see
Mm.
because it's not very obvious that it's there. And so, like you say, the energy that's gone into wrapping that many stems in that way to keep them upright and then to draw in these I don't know what handful, 10 stems maybe into the center with the seed heads. It could easily be that no one saw that at all.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of energy for I'm talking about it from the point of view of it being a consciousness, I don't know how that manifests, but it's a lot of energy for perhaps no recognition at all, or no acknowledgement, or uh, no sight of it.
Yeah.
So I like that side of it as well. I like that there's these tiny things, the stems flowing in the opposite direction in that second crop circle that I ever saw. I would dare say not many people noticed that because you have to look really carefully. Um,
Yeah. And
Notice it.
some things are just for the right people to see when they're ready to see it.
Exactly, yeah. But that's a lot of, as you say, a lot of energy has gone into just this one sort of square foot in amongst hundreds of feet of design.
Yeah.
That's a good point to labour. This is another Somerset formation. Uh, I'm not going to show you every slide in detail, but the nicest feature of this, it had a water feature in it, which is this sort of in amongst those weeds is a manhole cover. I
Hmm.
don't know, that's for a water main or irrigation or something. You can see it there on the left.
Yeah.
So we might have some analysis of that because actually it's rare. That crop circle could be placed anywhere in that field, literally anywhere. So why there? Um, why cross over that manhole cover feature when if it were moved 2 meters to the right or even a meter, it wouldn't have touched it. That it's questions we'll never answer, but we like to ask them.
Exactly, yeah. It's kind of playful, isn't it? I guess as well, because
Oh,
it just makes you ask questions that you wouldn't have thought of otherwise.
yeah, and it's deliberate in some way. We don't know. I don't know in what way, but it's deliberate. And even as I look at that now, because I haven't looked at this image very much, but to me, that dark line that goes from the rectangle to the sort of feature that's part of the crop circle, and then extends beyond. I'm only sort
Yeah.
of seeing that for the first time. I don't know this, but that could easily indicate an underground pipe if it's water that
Mm.
manhole accesses or drainage or something. But actually, looking at that right now, it goes all the way to the left of the image and it cuts directly through the middle of that crop circle. So um, again, whatever the reason, we'll never know. But it's nice to have these questions that don't have any answers. And it's, we could speculate or we just accept that, there's, like you say, there's a playfulness to this that is of no particular outcome apart from the enjoyment of those who see it,
Yeah,
which is right now. What I like about this, especially, is at the end of these pathways where they don't meet. I think these are coming up next. It's a bit like we were saying when the stems gently lay against the standing crop. It's a similar thing, rather than being a really clear sort of cut off of the design, which it kind of seems like in those. Yeah, it's quite rectangular. This one, the one sort of bottom right, isn't quite so clear cut, but you might you might expect that they're very clearly defined, flat and then standing, but they're not. They're just really gently sort of pressed into the standing stems, and then that's where they stop.
it's like when the sea reaches the shore and it just
Yeah,
dissipates into bubbles on the shore.
yeah, yeah. But it's giving a really clearly defined line when you look at it from above.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. The condition of the stems is always part of my analysis as well, which um, you know, it varies, and it varies, of course, with the number of visitors, but often they don't seem particularly trampled. That's at the most basic level.
Yeah.
Another Somerset formation, um, this time with some nice, so these pathways sort of flow into the central section, but then the stems have gone, I'm going to do it with my hands, but gone out to each side
Hmm.
rather than straight over and just overlapped. And also rather than, the rest on the bottom right here, the stems are flowing clockwise in that central part. So as they join from that pathway, the ones at the top of that are sort of joining the natural flow, whereas the ones at the bottom are kind of going against it. I can see the time limit, the time ticking down. So we'll show a couple more things. We've got this very rare thing it crosses the boundary of two fields, two crop types, and the top being sort of wildflowers and poppies,
Yeah, I
daisy,
saw this one,
meadow,
yeah.
meadow plants, and then wheat in the bottom. Um, it's so rare. I've never seen anything in this kind of wildflower meadow, but it was just perfect and beautifully, like gently
And
flat.
and not damaged, not trampled, not destroyed.
No, and the sort of petals, the flower heads, as you can see it in nearly all of these images, were just as they were in the rest of the crop that was in the field. Just very nice thing.
I mean, this one is just, it's beautiful. It's like a garden, isn't it?
Oh yeah, yeah. I've never seen anything like it.
I wonder, had agriculture not really developed in the area where it did, if these crop circles would just be appearing in, you know, fields of wild grass and flowers and things like that still. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
Obviously, they're
sure.
called crop circles because that's just an area where it's such a good place to grow crops that they decided to grow crops. But perhaps if they hadn't, nature would have looked differently with these formations.
Yeah, in the same areas perhaps. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll skip ahead to just show the Zeal's Knoll crop circle, um, because it was particularly amazing on the ground. This is the one. So rather than any actual flattened circles, they're all standing stems, and then it's the in between that's flattened.
Yeah.
A rare thing in itself, really. And already from Steve's sort of close up there, you can get a sense of the flow between those standing pieces. It doesn't quite do it justice from above. I don't think it's one of those formations that on the ground sort of comes into its own, and
I mean,
it's
this
because of
picture here is just incredible, isn't it?
It's absolutely amazing, and there's just stems going in so many different directions that you to analyze it on the ground is virtually impossible, really. And there's layers, even just I've got hundreds of photos that are very similar to this because that's how it is throughout, really. Each
Yeah,
feature similar but different. Even in this section, that bottom sort of pathway coming from the bottom going up, it
yeah,
flows against the flow of the ring that goes around that circle, overlapping it. Some of the stems go to the right underneath. Some of them are go under the anti-clockwise stems. It's just an amazing thing, and this is throughout the whole formation. Very rare thing to see this
it's
much.
almost it's almost like magic from Fantasia. You just imagine everything just like whirling around in almost like a vortex of energy, and
Yeah,
it's not just
yeah,
one flow. It's like a spiral of energy because it's wrapping around one way, but it's layering on top, so it can't just be one flow. It's multiple flows around the same circular shape.
yeah.
Is
And to
because
analyze the sort of an order in which sections or stems were flattened is not possible because they
yeah,
contradict. You might be able to follow one bit, but then you find that actually this part's coming underneath, and it can't be because over here it's on top, and it's pretty good. It all speaks of the sort of time frame for the actual creation of this being instant, sort of all at once, maybe a few seconds, I suppose, but
yeah,
all happening at the same time.
yeah, and that's the thing. I don't think it would have to take long for this to happen because the energy you can imagine just happening almost in an instant, but
Yeah,
so much is going on in that instant, and uh, I would absolutely love to see it happen in real time.
yeah, yeah, yeah. There's lots of swirled centers like this, and
Yeah,
yeah, like we've said, stems going in so many different directions that it doesn't really add up. Yeah, it's not really possible to sort of say, okay, this bit first, then that came from over there, and not how it was. And
I
of
think
course,
this
we
one's
can.
quite interesting as well because from above they're not the most perfect circles.
No, no, you're right.
So I think to the untrained eye, you could look at that and think, oh, maybe that's man-made. But then when you look at the flow, there's no way you can say that somebody's done all of this.
No,
Just not possible.
it's a very nice example of by the detail on the ground being very important to
Absolutely, yeah.
what this actually is, and maybe its purpose. Partly that could be it. This is the sort of probably
Hmm.
the most distinct feature of it on its own. As far as I could see, there was only one that was quite like this.
That's amazing, that one, yeah.
So it was an incredible, incredible thing. It was a rare for someone who is lucky enough to have seen lots of crop circles. That's there's a few in the lifetime that that are like that, or sort of that stunning, really. And I love them all, but it's different.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
like you said, this one really proves the flow concept and the
yeah,
groundwork nature
mm.
of it, because that probably is the centerpiece rather
Yeah,
than what's
yeah,
left. It's actually what's down and how it's
exactly.
down.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that was something. I think I showed these in my talk, and that's where we can see that basket weave in those
Yeah.
triangular outer sections.
Yeah,
I'll
those two will always hold a special place in my heart 'cause, those are the
exactly.
first two I
Well,
went in.
we share that in common that our first crop circles were ones where there were two in one field.
Wow.
As I showed earlier, that little one that was there.
Yeah.
Overview, and this year, as we said at the beginning of our talk, this year's been had some great stuff to see.
Yeah. It's been really interesting because obviously I've come into it more this year, and it's nice to feel there's a sense of excitement that crop circles are coming back and
Yeah,
that whatever consciousness is trying to show us these formations isn't quite done with us yet, and it's bringing them back. And most importantly, bring them back near where you live.
most importantly for me. Yeah, yeah. But you're right. You're coming into it at what feels like a very exciting time. And I haven't spent the last 10 years feeling like any sense of doom and gloom or that they're disappearing. I acknowledge the lower numbers, but I've enjoyed what there is, which is what we can do. But you're certainly coming into it in a year where there's a buzz of excitement. You're right.
Yeah, and hopefully next year we'll get to 50, like peak
It'd be
years.
amazing.
Yeah,
That's called a very busy summer. Yeah.
yeah, I can imagine. Um, Dan, I've really enjoyed speaking with you. Thanks so much for your time and taking us through that. I think your perspective's fascinating and the work you do is brilliant and groundbreaking. Where can people find you and find more details about your work?
The best place is my website, which is ukcropcircles.co.uk. That's um, documenting interiors since 2005. Um, and you can see every photo I've ever taken. Really. It's a big archive, including
Amazing.
this year.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time, and I hope you get to see some more this summer. And if you do, keep in touch.
Good talking to you.
You too. Cheers.
Bye.